1 2 1 2, mic check 1 2 1 2. And now a mic check for our radio audience. 1 2 1 2.
Radio Project was our last best hope for news. A self-contained podcast 2 hours long, located in neutral territory. A place of nonsense and innuendo for forum dads, community members and developers. A shining beacon in space, all alone on a Tuesday night. It was the dawn of the third chapter of Elite. The year's space legs came upon us all. This is the story of the last of the Lavian stations. The year is 3307. The name of the place? Lave Radio.
Greetings, Commanders, and welcome to episode 330 of Lave Radio, the show that likes to talk about the universe of Elite and the fantastic community that surrounds it. I'm your host, Commander Phoenix Defire, otherwise known as Colin Ford, Chief Archivist of Lave Station, and joining me in the Orange Sidewinder Bar for this episode, we have our Head of Health and Safety, Commander Aid Vice, otherwise known as Ben Moss Woodward.
Let me just whip out my joystick here.
We also have our trade attaché, that would be Commander Souverain.
What up?
We also have our Inhuman Resources Director, Commander Shan.
Hello.
And taking the title of Thargoid Cowboy, we have Commander Alec Turner, him of buckyballing, stroke, SRV races, stroke, head of highlights of the forum.
Yeah.
Say, Colin, if you keep stroking like that, I'm going to get jealous.
Yes, shouldn't he be Chief Stroker?
That didn't take long.
Or even the Master Stroker.
Yeah, okay, so that was 1 minute 12 seconds?
It's a new record. I'll start a forum thread.
Yeah, you do that. Right. If you wish, you can join us live. We are hanging out in game, or Ben hopefully will be hanging out in game somewhere around the planet Lave. But if you can't,
I'm docked in Lave at the moment, and I'll probably come out at some point tonight.
And leaving Lave Station?
Maybe.
And if you can't get in game, you can also join the Twitch chat channel, which you can access through laveradio.com/live, and clicking on the live chat, and at Twitch TV/Lave Radio, or go to YouTube, look at Lave Radio, or go to Facebook, and Lave Radio will be there also. So we'll quickly go around everybody, see what they've been up to for the last week, and yes, so we shall start with let's say Ben.
I've actually just got a quick one. So after my unexpected departure last night, pretty much my entire week, up to including today, and probably most of the next week, has been dealt with family issues. I've played 0 hours of Elite, about 0 hours of... maybe about 2 or 3 hours tops of any games over the past week. And that was RimWorld whilst I was basically trying to waiting in queues for things.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's been a fun week.
Yes, that's the new definition of the word fun. We're not really wanting. Commander Shan, how have you been this week?
I've not been too bad, but this week I am taking the anti-chat show interview approach to this section of the show, because I notice if you go on a chat show and the interviewer asks the star, well, what are you doing? And the star goes, oh, I've written a book and I've got a film out, and they're always like really busy. Well, this week I have actually done nothing at all, and I'm not going to try and make up something fun and interesting to make it sound as though I've done something fun and interesting, because I haven't. I haven't played any of the game. Work has been quite slow, and I'm not allowed to go anywhere, so it's been completely boring.
Well, great. Well, that's uplifting. Alec, please tell me you've had something interesting happen to you this week.
It's very hard to have anything interesting happening at the moment, isn't it? I got an old snooker table out of my attic. Does that count?
So, oh God, yeah, really. If the highlight is snooker, things are really, really bad.
I've been in game a bit. I went to see Serene Harbour because I missed all that because I was in Colonia. It was quite good. I've been turning the wheel quite a lot this week because things are getting close to being exciting there.
Okay.
And what else have I been up to? There's quite a nice forum thread where a guy is trying to collate all the planetary bases that are jolly close to each other, and I've been driving between them all to see what that's like. That's about it.
You mean?
For me.
Oh, right. You mean sort of like within 100k of each other? You mean?
Yeah,
That
turns
kind
out
of
there's quite a lot. I thought there was only one. There's a very well-known one on Wasat A2E, which is 50k, which we use for racing a lot. But he's found a good 6 or 7 that are quite nice little drives. So yeah, good.
Oh, excellent. I will hear when Sovereign is with us again, because he is with us, but he's got tasks to do before joining us online. Let's see, what have I?
I am actually here.
Oh, right. Well, in that case, now you've finished your tasks. What's been happening with you?
Well, I have been. It's been a really, really good week for work. That's been absolutely brilliant. Getting lots done. In game, a friend of mine runs a player group, and they had a war going on. And I said I'd drop in and help out. And so the other day, I flew over to. I took my main ship, my Crate Mark II, and I flew over to the system where they were fighting their war. And I dropped into one of the conflict zones, and deployed my fighter and got cracking. And after sort of we got to about halfway to filling the completion bucket or the winning bucket, the enemy, there's just this cascade of allied ship lost, and the red bar filled until suddenly we had lost. I was like, what? And I was like, well, that's a bit of bad luck. I'll just have to now I need to correct that before I can even start chalking up some runs. So I jumped out and rearmed and all that sort of thing, and then went back and had another go. And exactly the same thing happened. I took quite a lot of damage, so I flew away while my shields recharged and left my fighter duking it out. And then and then all of a sudden the red bar all the way to, and then the little thing, and then the person came over the tannoy saying, "I'm ordering a retreat. It's over." I was like, arse bollocks! I've now two CZs behind. So I was like, "Right, okay. Well, I'm going to need to roll out the big guns. My multi-purpose crate clearly isn't up to snuff." So I flew back to my home base, which is the Printworks in Malaysia, and swapped that for my Crate Mark II for my Mamba, which has 2 large gimbaled multi-cannons on it and a huge fixed beam laser, which usually makes short work of conflict zones. Flew that back, and exactly the same thing happened. Whether I just the whole it wasn't that I got blown up. It was that the time to kill was too long. Like the enemy just killed faster than I could. And I had to, and then I was like, "Oh, sod this! I'll go do something else." So I had to go back to my mate and say, "You know that war that I was going to help you with."
Yeah.
Well, I've actually lost three conflict zones for you. And he was like, "What? How? Why? They were the easy ones." I know. I don't know. I just, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I've just suddenly become incredibly shit, or they.
Are you a secret quisling, Sue?
Yeah, I'm not trying to undermine him. I genuinely did want to help, but I assured him that I wouldn't bring my particular flavour of helpfulness to his BGS wars for a little while.
Was there another player or winger players in the CZ? Or was it just you by yourself?
It was me by myself. There weren't any players.
Ah, right.
So
Because I've seen that happen where you think, oh, great, I'm winning this one. And then a couple of players join on the other side.
yeah,
And it's game over at that point.
I
yeah.
think
No,
I know what the cause of it was actually, Sue.
go on.
Well, I don't know if you ever tried this trick yet with the Suvette, but I'm sure other people who've been in a relationship for a while do the same. Is if you are asked to do a task that you don't particularly want to do, like the washing up or the dusting or something,
I
you
know what
do
you're
it
going to say. Yeah.
spectacularly badly, so therefore you never get asked again. So is that really what happened?
I wish that was. I wish I could say something. I wish I could give any reason apart from incompetence. I really wish I could. I would love it if a dev popped up and said, "Oh, we've actually just really buffed the conflict zones in that one system, just to mess with you." But and if somebody did say to me, "Do you know what they've ramped up the rate at which the enemies start getting kills when you get to halfway," then I would absolutely believe them, because that's exactly what it felt like. But my sneaking, pervasive suspicion is that I'm just a bit shit. So outside of Elite, I've been Atris and Polish Dan and I have been continuing our Total Warhammer Odyssey. Dan and I have a Dowie game going on where we're both different dwarven factions taking over the world, and Atris and I have a Skaven game going on in which I'm Clan Scryer and he's Clan Molder, and we're taking over the old world in a pincer movement, and it is spectacularly good fun.
Excellent. Right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you had such bad luck with the conflict zones. I must admit, I'm. It's funny you should mention having bad luck with conflict zones, because I've had something similar happen to me with the power play conflict zones that I'm involved with at the moment. We're doing an expansion into into a new system, and we're at 438%, but we're losing against 2,845%.
The
Which
words
normally
percent start to lose a bit of meaning, don't they, in
it
situations like this?
it does, because basically, as far as this is concerned, if you manage to try an expansion in power play, it first of all starts at if you're under 100%, it's the first one to reach 100%. But then, if it carries on longer than that, then it's whoever's got the highest percentage. And normally, what happens is when one power manages to expand, 3 or 4 other powers will just pile in to try and stop it. And so you're normally outnumbered about 4-1 and just bucket filling. Even though I think I have only ever seen twice other enemy players in a conflict zone, which I think is a bit of a shame. I think you should see a lot more players, enemy players in power in those kind of combat zones. But they're different from your standard combat zone, because the standard combat zone's got an upgrade with all the wonderful, your your green bars and your red bars, and also secondary objectives and that kind of thing. The power play combat zones never got changed. They're still exactly the same as they were when they were first released. So it's like going back in time a bit. But I'll say one thing: the ships that you're fighting against are a lot more difficult than all the others put together. They're sort of a bit rock hard, to be honest. And apart from that, helping out with the CG. So that's been my week. Right. So let's see what has been happening with the devs this week. Well, the big news that happened was the Discovery Scanner. Now, we'll be going into this into a lot more depth later on in the show, but obviously, the planetary tech was discussed by Dr. K. Ross, her of the Stellar Forge and very clever mathematics which generate the entire galaxy. There's
Dr.
also
K. Ross, her of divine godliness. She made the universe, for Christ's sake.
well, the
So does
galaxy.
she now deserve the subtitled Great Maker?
She is the great maker.
David Braben is the Great Maker.
But she actually did the making.
Yes, but whose design was it? And was it intelligent design?
Oh,
Or was it accidental?
Oh my goodness! Already into the heavy fizzle on you know what? Heavy
I'd put it
brain
down to
ideas.
I'd put it down to a pantheon rather than one
You've
single
got
deity.
So is there Thoth in that pantheon? Because if not, he should be.
definitely he should be.
Oh, great! And is that going to be this week's question? Which Greek god is the member of Frontier? Is that where we're going with this?
Oh, we can do. We can do. We can go the way if you like.
Mike
Yeah.
Max is probably the Minotaur.
I'm ill-informed if that's tonight's
So,
discussion.
so Sarah Jane Avery then would be the goddess of war, wouldn't she?
I mean, it can't be worse than which member of the Teletubbies is Lave Radio.
True.
Would you be war or would you be closer to mischief?
Well, that's Hermes, isn't it?
If you broaden it to all the different gods, then it becomes slightly more interesting because there's like Norse. There's lots of colourful Norse gods, for
Yep.
example.
Maybe Zach is messenger or Hermes because he's a CM, you see. So
I think Zach might be low
Zach
key a bit
Raff.
mischievous.
Yeah.
Zach
You know,
actually is mischievous.
Right,
That's
well,
true.
I thought just keeping it to the Greek gods because basically otherwise everything gets more confusing. I can just keep
Like
the
confusion.
Greek gods in mind.
so what sort of toast would the Greek
Oh,
god?
God.
Sorry.
Because I mean, you have
It's J.
have-
Aries.
the toast and nectar, wouldn't you? You would have toast and honey. You'd have toast and nectar.
Ambrosia, yeah.
Ambrosia, yeah, that's what
Ambrosia
they.
is Greek, isn't it?
Yeah, I've just listened to all the Stephen Fry Greek myths books, so basically it's I've got that on the brain at the moment.
I've got the Neil Gaiman Norse one next on my list, so we should have
That's brilliant. Norse gods. I love Norse gods.
we should have a god off when
I
I'm
got off waiting for Goddos.
done.
Right. Now, this Discovery Scanner went into obviously a lot of detail, which we'll be able to talk about later. But in general, guys, is this the kind of thing that you really wanted to see from, from Frontier? Is this kind of
Yes.
reassure you instead of those
It
dead
was a
hands?
really good start.
What was covered? Sorry.
Did you not see it, Sif?
No, I don't know anything about it. Treat me as the
He's
the
in the room
bloke who
with
yes,
Toker.
precisely, yes, the helpful idiot, yeah.
It was Kay Ross talking with love and intelligence about her fabulous Stella Forge creation. There are some good nuggets in there actually about what is fundamentally different from what we have now, but maybe that's the
Yes.
main discussion.
Could we talk about those nuggets now, or is that for later?
That's for later. We will cover all those nuggets with a lot of
The nuggets are
aplomb.
still being in the oven, and we'll just wait just to dip into them later.
You have to
Excellent.
wait
I
for
will
your nuggets.
sit like a patient Labrador in front of the oven, gazing at the quietly browning nuggets.
What Labrador?
I grew up with one, and they do patience very well.
They're
Do
also
they
a
like
bit dumb.
nuggets?
they're just
This one
eat-
did, yeah.
Eat any food they possibly can.
Will eat anything. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They're like
Well,
goats.
continuing on from there, there was obviously Tuesday's stream, which I'm afraid I missed, so I'm going to have to be the helpful idiot on that one. From what I
I
can
only
see,
caught the last 20 minutes of it because they started well early today.
I'll
no,
be
they
the expert
started-
on this one then.
we started at a normal time. It's just unfortunately I was still
Okay,
working.
I was very busy today.
Mm,
It was
um,
Stephen did a striptease to the tune of "Like a Virgin" by Madonna.
I missed that bit. I haven't seen it all yet.
I'm glad I missed
With
that bit.
It comes towards
with
the end. It's
Tony-
pretty good. It's worth tuning in for.
what,
I
completely
wouldn't go as far as to say there are any decent nuggets in it, but despite
I
being
don't know,
nuggetless,
depends.
it's pretty good watching.
There are,
Depends
there are
on the
definitely toilet
striptease one.
nuggets. Significant toilet nuggets.
Oh,
Yes,
Yes.
I want to know what this toilet stuff is. Can somebody please illuminate me?
well, apparently,
To the main discussion.
yeah. Well, no, this one is outside the main discussion. Apparently, toilets have been confirmed in Odyssey, so that means when you go to the bar, there should be a convenience nearby.
Fantastic. Are they
Yeah, I thought
flushable? Do they work?
See, that's interesting because I thought you went to the loo inside your suit and it recycled
Mm.
thing to help your survival. You know, like still suits in Dune
Yeah.
recycled your waste, didn't they? And then you
I
then
found
drink
that
it
I
again.
found
Yeah.
that feature that particular bit of information really impeded my enjoyment of Dune. After I read that paragraph about the fact that you shit in your suit and then it makes useful things out of it, I was just like, I'm really struggling with the rest of this book because I'm just imagining them with like this sort of puffy diaper. Oh, it's just gross. It's just totally gross.
Hang on, let's investigate this toilets issue a bit.
All right, what's for dinner? Oh, it looks like chocolate brownies again. Oh dear.
You know, sometimes it can be a struggle, you know, just getting to the loo in time when you've got button-up flies. I don't know if you have the same issue, but if you've got button-up flies, they are particularly difficult to get undone in a hurry. But if you've got a whole flight suit to try and strip off, or is there like a little flap that comes out that you can undo?
Well, let's just hope that it's unpowered. Because can you imagine what would happen if your batteries are gone and you couldn't get it out the button?
I just hope these toilets are going to be vacuum toilets. Otherwise, Suv is going to be incensed about the gravity issues again.
Yes.
Me and any visitors to my ship.
It's 0G.
Yes.
I am very glad that we're getting toilets because, you know, I don't know about you, but the idea of having to go and do my business in front of everybody else in the bar, I think it would just be a little bit off-putting. So,
But
you
where's
know,
the bed?
having a little corner I can stand in and do my business, I'm quite grateful for, frankly.
What gameplay purpose does the toilets have? I mean, is it like The Sims, where you have a little bar above your head, and that when the bar gets desperate, you kind of have to go? Is that why they're there? I mean, can you, I don't know, graffiti in them? Can you invite someone in with you? You know, what's the
That is a really good question.
Reduce a risk of infection.
and do they still have little blue bars of disinfectant soap thing? You can like move along the bottom.
I remember them.
What are they? What are they going to be like in the outposts where there's no spin?
Messy.
You might be able to make little bars.
You've got a vacuum.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure about this gameplay.
Well, the vacuum
No,
thing,
not
that's
either.
interesting, 'cause would they be like would they vacuum ones be like the toilets in a caravan or a boat? You
Oh,
know,
stop.
to pump it.
Do
I-
it right. Okay. I think this show is well known for its toilet humor, but I think we've gone too far now, trying to work out the exact
And can you
mechanics for a
smell
zero G poop.
toilet water in the bar?
Let's move on.
I think we shall. Arth has also checked Pomesh 2C, and he has confirmed that it has changed. Sorry about this, Alec, but apparently it still
I
has a
don't
big
care. It's not
canyon and
mine. It's
craters.
Ben's. Ben can keep it now. You can keep the rotten planet.
It's ruined for you. Ben brought his filth, and that was the last you wanted of it.
He's named it. He can have it. It's dead to me now.
Oh dear! Not that it is bitter. Not you bitter about it in any way.
So hang on, sorry, Colin. I just had another thought about the previous subject.
Oh no!
If you are able to go to the loo, does that mean you can write your name on ice planets?
Dear.
I like it.
Yeah. I think we shall move along from that particular subject, but something interesting was revealed in the stream. Now, apparently, commanders won't be able to instance with Odyssey. That's Horizon commanders won't instance with Odyssey players on non-atmospheric planets. Now, this is because of something I wasn't expecting. Not technical issues, rating restrictions. Apparently, Odyssey will have a higher age restriction than present Horizons, mostly due probably to the fact that you can actually blow people's heads off and you're actually shooting people instead of shooting ships. But
Sorry to hear that, Ben.
Because Elite is rated 7,
yes,
Peggy.
That's why Ben plays it.
What, so he can team up with 7-year-olds?
Oh dear. It's just no, we're not going anywhere near that one.
No, so it's rated a what's Elder Series? Is that 12 then?
And
Yes,
it,
what, what age does society collectively deem appropriate for watching people get shot
16.
in the head? 16, jolly good. Right.
16 because that's what it is for Halo, and you can do a lot of shooting in the head in Halo.
I mean, not being disingenuous to 7-year-olds, but Elite's quite a complicated game for a 7-year-old to try and play. I mean, surely they'd be more interested in Minecraft or something.
I tried playing Minecraft. That is a complex game.
It is.
The
And
Sluvet and I lasted half an hour with Minecraft, and then we were like, "Fuck this!"
those spiders got you so hard it hit you into the so you could sing soprano.
So that's the question. So it's okay to shoot at a ship
Yeah,
or a Thargoid.
yeah. But it's not
Or
okay to shoot an actual person. Because you don't actually see the violence of what happens to the poor pilot when the ship's exploding. It's actually a more horrible fate, I think, being just blown apart to atoms in a ship rather than, you know,
what
being
about
shut down.
shooting the cute scavengers, the Thargoid runes? Isn't that traumatic enough?
No, because they're not human.
I
Also,
think
nobody dies in Elite at the moment, but
that's true. That's a good
people are
point.
going to start dying, perhaps.
Oh no, Iron Man mode becomes real.
That was another thing that they did say. They're still apparently talking about. They don't know how they're going to handle death yet.
They really need to sort that out.
They don't know how they're
Really
going to handle. Seriously, they don't know how they're going to handle death.
It'll be
Apparently,
fine. It'll be
This
fine.
game,
We
this
don't
game
know
was
how we
this
handle
game was
death.
supposed to come out 3 months ago. Oh my god, Jesus!
Wow, I must admit that is a bit of a jaw dropper.
Jesus Christ, people!
I
To be
suspect
fair,
these stories of them not knowing about the death mechanic are slightly exaggerated.
that's
be
well,
fair,
that's what
I,
basically.
I'm sure they have
Yeah,
a basic concept and they're trying to
hold on,
decide.
yeah.
I'll say something nice. To be fair, they could have had one death mechanic, then in play testing, found it wasn't suitable or wasn't fun or something, and are now having to rethink it. So maybe they did put one death mechanic in and they didn't think it right, so they've had to go around the iterative loop again and try again.
They said that they had the same thing with atmospheric landings. They hadn't decided they hadn't firmed up whether there were going to be atmospheric effects that would affect your the flight model when you were flying in these tenuous atmospheres. The amount of stuff that appears to still be up in the air is spectacular for something which is supposed to come out was supposed to come out several months ago.
Right. Well, Ben, you wanted to talk about death.
So I can't remember Arth's exact words, but it was to paraphrase. They may not even know exactly how they want to deal with death in the when it goes into the alpha, and they might get our opinion on a couple of solutions they have. So yes, I mean obviously you're right. They have ideas in mind, but it sounds like, well, do we want it this way? Do we want it that way? Shall we just have? How are we going to deal with it? Basically, what's the best gameplay way to do it?
Of all the game decisions that they might choose to crowdsource about, how big a reticle should be or something, just letting us decide what the death mechanic is seems quite a big one for them to have not decided amongst themselves. But anyway,
Maybe we can
The-
base it on an Eddie Izzard routine where you sort of it's either you have cake or death.
cake or death.
And if you're out of cake, it's just or death.
Or
I really hope they don't crowdsource that decision. That is really not something that I think player base should decide.
I mean, it is something that Arth said in almost like the last 10 minutes of the stream today. That it may not be locked on even in the alpha.
Shan.
Yeah, I mean that's a really interesting quote because so much of the game surely revolves around what happens when a player is defeated. So if they are, for a better word, crowdsourcing it, then that could be a huge 90-degree turn in game play based on the votes of players. And I find that staggering to think they haven't thought that through.
Well, I'm
Well,
sure you can be
maybe
defeated. It's just that
maybe I think they've got the mechanics sorted out. They just need the lore reason behind it.
yeah.
Better at coming up with lore for BS game mechanics than they do. I'll agree with that.
I mean,
So
yeah, Eve
have they
has
come
got
up
the
with a
clone
law
thing.
mechanic? Yeah, have they come up with a law mechanic for you can blow up at Beagle Point and end up 65,000 light years back
That's
in
dead
moments.
simple, isn't it?
I don't see why it needs. I don't see why it's a complex issue, really. Like if you die, I don't see why you couldn't have a little med bay as one of the tile sets that the proc gen system draws settlement generation from,
In a
and
very
so for example, 15% of all 60,000 stations in the bubble have a little med bay thing in them, and that when you die, you just respawn at the closest one. I don't see why that wouldn't be
Or do we just
yeah,
spawn in that ship?
a very good mechanic that I'd like for death mechanic are the ones that's in Left 4 Dead and even in Guild Wars 2, which you can drink to, is that if you're killed or defeated, you have a few seconds to either try and kill the thing that got you, or you got a friend to come and resuscitate you and get you back on your feet. I tend to like that mechanic because it's additional gameplay. It's not just bang bang, you're dead. It's you're down but not out, and then you have to have someone come and rescue you to get you back up again. And I quite like that mechanic because it's not too punishing and it can be quite exciting trying to hope your friend gets there in time.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean that's the pub G, isn't it? Where you're on the brink of death and you're hoping that your friend will run over, hit you with a med pack before you expire.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Or as someone said in chat, perhaps you come back to life with a big H on your forehead.
Stephen Usher's just put in a a good comment. When Mars was terraformed, they found the Mistern's device resurrection thing, so that when you die, you get two circles appear over you, and then you're up and normal and you're fine again.
If you become
Brilliant.
a Mist one, does that mean you then start supporting Star Citizen or something?
It's probably one of the bugs. So, okay, let's have a quick look at what has actually been happening in game this week. Well, yes, quite a few interesting, um, eventful things have happened this week. So, first of all, at the end of the previous week's CG, victory was declared for Federal forces against the Jupiter division. Jupiter was captured and is now in custody, facing federal charges. Um, then there was the rare goods requirement for the Galactic Summit, the CG, which I ran quite a lot over the weekend. It was very, very profitable, but it did run out on Sunday, which I thought was a bit rubbish. One thing I will notice is the number of people that are taking part in these CGs are a heck of a lot higher than they used to be. Um, I remember before the CGs got shut down, you were lucky to get 3,000 people registered as taking part. But in the last couple, there's been at least 12,000 people playing each, and surely that's a good sign of player
I think it's
engagement.
because they've changed the reward system, to actually not purely credits, but
Could be.
more interesting
There could
prizes.
also be. I mean, there's also an enormous number of new players, aren't there, from the Epic giveaway who maybe haven't done CGs before. So I'm sure that
Yeah.
contributes.
Yeah. Oh, one final thing that I should point out after the development news. Apparently, Thargoids have been spotted over Mars. That first photograph from the Mars robot did seem to have this strange um, shadow on it from the photograph published by um, Frontier.
That was
Anybody?
fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was
fantastic.
fantastic. I mean, I must admit that was one of my highlights of last week, sitting and watching Perseverance touchdown and then the footage. I mean, I
Mm,
just fascinated me by the whole mechanics of it and the pure engineering feat of it has just been stunning. And there was a footage, wasn't that released yesterday? I think it was, of the video of Perseverance entering the atmosphere and then
High
landing.
quality footage of the landing was fantastic, wasn't it? That little thing, doesn't it look like a little SRV though? It's got the 6 wheels and it's
Yeah, I was sort of
Yeah.
expecting a little thing saying orbital cruise, something coming up. It was just brilliant.
totally an
Yeah,
SRV.
have we
Wheels
heard
even
the?
expand though, Alec.
Sorry?
Did you see its wheels coming down and expanding as well?
I know, yeah,
They
and
fold out.
it's brilliant. It's
Have
brilliant.
we heard the microphone yet?
Yes. Although the
Oh, yeah.
microphone is just somebody breaking wind.
Did it go oola or something when they listened to it?
Unfortunately, I think it was one of the first ones that came there, but ever since then, there's been ones with Marvin the Martian, Bernie Sanders, of course. Yeah, there's been a couple of Martian war machines in the background. Oh, and of course the Jawa. Did anyone see the Jawa one? I thought that was
I've seen
quite
the
good.
Java one, but I like
On
that.
on a more serious question, going back to what we were talking about last week, where
Mhm,
where science and credibility, etc., meet in Italy. If we can do that for a rover on Mars now,
mhm, mhm.
why can't we have a system to automatically land our ships from orbit?
We can. You can, from your SRV, you can say land. It's
Yeah,
just
so
that we
we're not
can't
in
do
there.
it. We
You
we
can,
we
just not when you're in it.
yes. And to be fair, there was, as far as we're aware, at least, there was no life on that rover either. So seems reasonable to me.
Well, I mean, as far I mean, I must admit, when you watch that rover come down, the you were thinking, oh god, something's going to go wrong, something's going to go wrong. But the fact it went so smoothly, I thought, well, first of all, I was very glad to see it go so well. But then I keep on thinking back to the space shuttle where it was working so well for so often that
So it
people just took it
wasn't.
for granted.
Yeah, totally. I was waiting for the read-by screen to come up.
Oh,
Yeah,
SpaceX did have the rebuy screen come up for their booster.
yeah, that was unfortunate.
Yeah.
But anyway, shall we go back to our pretend space exploration?
Space.
Yeah, pretend space. Yes, we've had the rare good CG for the upcoming Galactic Summit. Did anyone else take part in that?
I couldn't for obvious
No.
reasons.
Nope, nope,
Mm.
I didn't this one. Am I right in thinking the reward for this one is wider access to the double engineered FSD? Is that right?
I don't know. I think it was just money this time.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. I must admit, I did actually quite enjoy that one. I did do a couple of runs in open, which I had to basically bug out because basically there was, as per usual in most of these CGs, if you try it in open, there are people waiting for you. Uh, so I just thought I'd try it, but I managed to jump away before they could do serious damage. But yes, and a lot of good conversation I did notice in that room, on that system rather. Other news: Laken Spaceways HQ has moved to the Alioth system. There is a 5% discount on all Alioth ships, or sorry, any Lakon ships in the Alioth system, if you should desire. However, you do need a permit to get to Alioth.
So I think Lakon should
So,
pay you for taking ships off their hands.
oh, I
Go on,
was going
Ben.
to ask Shan, would you buy a Lakon ship with 5% off?
No, because if I wanted to go around and heap the junk, I'd buy them from a Leon U system with 15% off.
She
Oh,
might be a
right.
heap of junk, but she's got it where it counts, kid.
So apparently, I've been corrected. The FSD was made available as a reward for this CG. I must have missed that, to be honest.
I
They
think I
made it
think it's
more
like the
available
last
anyway.
one. Isn't it
Mm.
like the last one? So it goes into the Guardian tech broker. So I think anyone can get it, even if they didn't take part in the CG. Is that how it works? I think
Hope
it,
Should
so.
be. It should
cool.
be.
It,
All I know is if you were taking Lave and Brandy to the appropriate appropriate station, you were making quite a lot of money per trip. It was actually quite a good run.
Incidentally, the good news for that is that we can now re-allow that double engineered FSD in our races because anyone can get hold of one.
Yay!
So
That's
it's
good.
allowed again.
That's feel like everyone wins at sports day, isn't it?
It is a bit.
And you have a medal for taking part. Well, it did seem that Hudson and Winters have both confirmed themselves for the Galactic Summit. Hudson is turning up to prove that he still is the president, and Winters is turning up to say, no, I should be president, and look how presidential I'm being. And the Alliance protests have been triggered by the cancelled election. Mahan and his arrival will also arrive at this summit, which is happening this Thursday. So, just asking everybody here, do you think it's going to go without a hitch? Is everything going to go nice and smoothly, or do you think there's something coming?
I think they're going
What
to.
could go-
I think they're going to raid. They're going to riot and then burst in the control room of the station, and then stand on the platform and wave flags around, and then be escorted around the place by policemen.
Yes.
We've got terrorists on the loose. We've got all the leaders coming round. What could go wrong, eh?
Yeah, what could possibly go? We haven't got all the leaders coming round. The Emperor, in her wisdom, has decided to stay away, but she sent some of her important members of staff.
He doesn't care about.
It's like Google for Instance, putting all the people in one ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Do we know who the designated survivor is? Is it Etienne Dawn by any chance?
Yes, I think that's. Well, actually, no. The Emperor would be the designated survivor if something happens, wouldn't it? Because that'd be the leadership for two of the three major powers wiped out in one go.
Yes, interesting.
Mm.
Yes, something's
I
definitely going to happen.
I think we should lay some odds. So I'm going to go for total massacre caused by the Thargoids at 5-1. Any other takers?
Nothing will happen.
I think
I've
the
got
Malinists are going to do something.
well, some of the odds that we've just put in for fun are total massacre caused by the Emperor 7-1. No.
No,
Nope,
no,
just
I'm not
taking
going
that
to take that.
Total massacre caused by the by Jupiter Rochester. I've got that at 9-1.
Again, probably a nope.
Total massacre by Milanists 10-1.
I would go. Do we have a partial massacre?
We can have any violence caused by these then.
I'm going for violence caused by Malinists.
Okay.
And not a total success.
Okay. Violence caused by any power play leader at 15-1.
Power play leaders
takers.
are interesting because I think players feel a degree of sense of ownership over them, which they probably shouldn't. And you don't often see power play leaders doing morally dubious things, I think partly for that reason.
I've got everything going without a hitch, 100-1 against.
Yes, I'll take that bet.
I think they will sit around a table and they will share joss sticks and sing Kumbaya, and then they'll have a really happy time and then go home.
Yeah, do you mean like they did in Ali G? Ali G, the movie, managed to sort out most
Well,
of
if
the
you do that, or it'll be a red wedding situation, won't it?
Yeah.
Why? What happens to this red wedding? I've heard a lot about it.
Called red for a reason.
It's horrendous. It's just terrible, terrible television.
Well, Sovereign, it's your moment to shine in the sun because we've had
Store alert!
There we go. Yes, we've
Suvette's in
had.
the other room playing Mario, and she just every Tuesday she just must find it so bizarre that I sit here quietly in the living room doing my podcast thing, and then just scream "store alert" at the top of my lungs. Like it must be the only thing she can hear through the wall.
I also hope that's not the only reason why we have Severine on the show, Colin. Just to do that bit.
No, we know why
Surely
we've
we
got
could record
Severine
it.
on the show.
Look, I've come to terms with why I'm here. Like, I get it. Nobody else can do it as nobody else can do it from the diaphragm like I can. Like I get it. I know what I bring to the table. It's
Colin
fine.
could give it a go. Actually, Colin, quite mild mannered and quiet, so I think his story alert would be remarkable.
Maybe it would be a more sensitive rendition.
Yeah, full of
I-
emotion and expectation.
Yeah, like an instrument, like an acoustic cover.
You must be joking. Well, this week they covered the asp, and you've got predator skins for the asp.
Yes.
Why have they got predator skins? Asp is nearly as lack of a predator as the Type 7. It's like
Sorry, I beg
Predatory
to
asp
differ.
in front of things.
Yeah.
the Lacon. Trying to make a Lacon ship seem exciting.
I beg to differ. When I first got my asp, I felt invulnerable.
Yeah, but that's because at the time everybody else was in piddling little cobras, and an asp versus a cobra, and an asp would eat cobras for
the asp-
breakfast.
Well, the asp was the first ship which I could reliably and safely, comfortably and easily take down an anaconda in.
Mm.
Whereas, before when I was flying an Eagle or a Type 7, or even a Cobra, I could do it, but it was risky.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we are going to take our usual break, and we will come back with our main discussion, which was the deep dive into what Dr. Ross was explaining.
This is a public service announcement from the Fuel Rats. Please stop what you're doing and pay attention. If we can rescue you, we will, but you can help us help you by following these easy steps. 1. Fly 50 light seconds or so from the system's main star and drop out of supercruise. 2. Note down the current system and the nearest stellar body. 3. If you're on emergency life support, log out immediately. 4. Go to fuelrats.org and click Get Help. 5. Stay calm, hold your breath, and let our seasoned professionals do what they do best. The Fuel Rats. We have fuel, you don't. Any questions?
Have you been missold PPI? Python Protection Insurance was missold if you didn't want it, ask for it, or need it.
I was missold Python Protection Insurance and I got a claim worth 3,000 credits.
At Cowell & McGrath, we are ready to pursue claims for pilots who were sold PPI, even though they didn't have an escape pod.
When my partner's ship was destroyed, the insurance became invalid. I settled out of court for enough credits to restart my narcotics and weapons shipping business.
Millions have been missold Python Protection Insurance they can never claim, simply because they don't have an escape pod. Why should you pay for not reading the small print?
My husband was missold PPI. As a result of our claim, we now own Jupiter.
Cowell & McGrath, turning your carelessness into profitable lawsuits.
No, I don't know.
Go on. If you sing it, Sue, we'll follow and we'll sing what your words have said. Go on.
Oh dear.
I don't know we don't have any lyrics. I don't know what I'm singing.
Right. We will see about that next week, shall we? Anyway, we apologise.
Should we give people a
question.
spoiler as to what we're all laughing about?
Tune in next week for the barbershop store alert.
We'll ask the viewers to write us a store alert song, and then we'll try and sing it next week.
Well, that's cool.
Listeners, let's ask the listeners. Listeners, we in the advert break. We hit upon the genius idea of forming a Lave Radio barbershop quartet to record a store alert song. And if you have a tune or would like to suggest lyrics for this, then do let us know, because a barbershop quartet store alert song would be a tremendous addition to Lave Radio, I think, and just broadcasting history generally.
I must admit, I have no. So far, someone said, right, you need to do it to the fish advert.
The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, the line. Yes, that's a good one. That's very
A
good.
Wimbleway, a
Someone
Wimbleway,
someone will
Wimbleway.
Store
gladly
alert,
play
store alert.
37 arcs to hear it.
You won't do it to Agadoo.
Or
In
Agadoo
the
do
galaxy, the mighty galaxy, the store alerts us tonight.
No.
Alert!
It's a winner.
Ventura says, remember copyright.
It's parody. That won't be a problem.
I would be so flattered if an algorithm somewhere mistook me for copyrightable material.
Right.
In here.
Cassius is wanting a refund.
In the newsletter, the bi-weekly newsletter, the store
Oh, he's off
alerts us
now.
tonight.
He's off. That sounds. I'm sorry to say that last bit sounded a bit like escaping flatulence.
I mean,
It sort of sounded
it?
like I imagine Keir Starmer to sing, actually, to be honest. But
Phew, into the politics. Anyway, main discussion. As you are all aware, Dr. K. Ross was on the live stream last Thursday, doing a lot of explanations about how the Stellar Forge has changed and how planetary services have changed in the up and coming Odyssey. So. Let's start at the very beginning, because it's a very good place to start. And the first question that was asked to her was, what is the Stellar Forge? Now, this is obviously for the newbies out there. Most of us are familiar, but it is a framework which they input data and get out space stuff that they want. They've built this framework with what raw data they have in the Milky Way, and then they feed it into it, and it makes basically best guesses about what should come out, and then procedurally deterministically offers a physically plausible series of star systems which represent the Milky Way. Examples of Milky Way data included are layout, mass distribution, age, regions, and lots more. So, yeah. The Stellar Forge, guys. Now, the last time we talked about the Stellar Forge, Dr. Ross did a deep dive in it at wasn't it the Frontier Expo?
Wow, was it that long ago? That was such a good presentation.
I wonder how much of that has been revised due to improvements in Horizons and now Odyssey. I guess we'll find that out when we get there. But because further on down the list, she did talk about other changes, didn't she, to the mechanics.
Indeed, there's a lot. I don't know if people realise, because I only spotted this relatively recently, that actually there's a complete transcript of the K. Ross's talk on the forum. And I found reading it that there was a lot that had sort of passed me by, and listening to it and reading it was like, oh gosh, I don't even remember her saying that. There's some really good stuff in here, actually.
Yeah, it is quite a. This is. Is this the transcript from the first presentation, or what?
No, this one last week.
Yeah, this is some of the things that is in that transcript. So it'll be interesting to see what everyone makes of this. Question: can you describe something funny that's happened with the Stellar Forge? And basically said one of the funniest things was the hairy ball theorem. Apparently, if you have a sphere or an object, and it's got hair pointing out all over it, around it, apparently you can't have it.
It's something Ben thought up.
Yes, Ben. What are your thoughts on these hairy balls?
Can you have hairy balls, Ben?
I haven't actually googled this. I kept meaning to. I had
He's
this.
AFK, so we can keep making stuff up about him until he comes back.
Oh yes, he is AFK. Yeah.
Oh,
We'll
yes.
ask him when he comes back. We'll ask him what his hairy balls are like when he comes back.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point? I mean, we supply him with the ultimate in smutty comments,
Yeah,
and of
we're
course
bowling
he's
a
away.
full toss, aren't we? We're bowling a full toss at him, and he's not even able to hit it for 6.
I
You just need
know.
to use some Veet. It's fine.
So Ben, hairy balls. What do you think?
I think you should make
Well,
the
they're
Veet
not really
suggestion
for
to
me.
Dr. Ken.
I'd ask. To be honest, I would inquire that of any one of our partners, and I think that's actually the more important question. But moving on.
They have said if something gets inputted wrong, what we have ended up with is essentially a very hairy planet to show the very frustrating hairy ball theorem. These are tiny spikes that are everywhere, and it looks fuzzy. It's a very expensive way of rendering fur, and we do not recommend.
You know what? I've never seen a hairy ball planet. Has any of you seen a hairy ball planet?
No.
It's an
Obviously
error.
because K got rid of them.
Yeah, exactly. They're not meant to be there.
It's a known mathematical problem when you're converting squares into circles, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's boring.
Cubes
I
into
think we need more hairy balls in the universe.
I do hope Pamesh isn't a mistake. That they
Yeah,
think.
interesting.
Jan, that says more about you than it does about the rest of us.
Surely, other people in this show think they would want to see a hairy ball planet.
We've had pizza planets.
Well, does Uranus like hairy balls?
Oh, like, I'm just there going, what? But of
I think
course, yes.
that's one to cut out and put at the end of the show.
That's one to add to the whole Uranus discussion that happens at the end of the show, apparently.
That's going to end up longer than the show.
Yeah, it is at this rate. Anyway, so they've built a galaxy. How do you go about the finer details? Well, yes. Last time they did a talk on this, it went into detail about how planets start not as spheres but as cubes, and with square patches that make up the cubes. Everything then becomes a sphere and is then offset to generate them to represent terrain. For Horizon, that terrain was generated entirely mathematically. There was a lot of effort put into representing the kind of shapes and hills and canyons just using maths. For Odyssey, there's an entirely different approach for making these offsets. It takes the view of starting big and then refining small. So a planet has lots of stellar forge data associated with it. Things like gravitational stress, the crust is under, the proportion of depth, which is its crust or magma and core. And it just, I mean, the amount of stuff that she explains in this, it just makes it just makes you begin to understand how much work has gone in to get this scientifically accurate. I mean, what do you guys think of this? Because it's
I think it's staggering, personally. I think it's we joke about the simplicity of the game and all sorts of stuff like that. But when she goes into the detail of how these planets are generated, it really gives an appreciation of the amount of coding and complexity that lies under the surface.
Yeah.
No pun intended, I'm assuming.
I think this first one, this is one of the ones where, when on rereading it, I thought this is actually really interesting. So there's a line that says, for Horizons, the terrain is generated entirely mathematically. If you, I'm sure most people have noticed this, but although in some ways, each mountain range or each valley in Horizons looks sort of different, there's a sameness about them. I remember when Horizons was first, when they first talked about Horizons, and before we got hold of it, thinking, oh, it'll be really interesting to I don't know, have a race to some noticeable landmark. But there are no noticeable landmarks, really. It looks brilliant, but there's nothing that sort of stands out. You can't say, oh,
They
I'll meet
used
you.
to be, didn't they?
Well,
They
not
used to be,
really.
and they redid it.
not the landscape in Horizons always reminds me of that thing where they sort of used to show on Open University or something where you start combining sine waves and you get this sort of terrain that's sort of random, but there's a sameness to it. And what I find really exciting about this is they're basically saying they're not going to do it like that anymore. Um, they're going to, instead of using this sort of mathematically generated terrain, they're going to start modeling it much more accurately. And there's a nice phrase, what was it? This might make the terrain more chaotic, more flat plains or basins and things like that. I think we're really going to start to see really interesting, noticeably different terrain, which is so exciting.
Although I will say the images we got back from Mars could almost be high resolution versions of some of the planets I've landed on. They really, I was thinking about the actual way the rocks are strewn about and this way this crater looks. That's
Yeah.
on Mars at the moment. It's almost identical in feel to what we see in Horizons, and I think that is very good to see.
Right. Suv, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Alex said. I think he's absolutely right that the Horizons planets are interesting because they there's you clearly could they're not just tiled. You clearly
No.
could say, oh, I'll meet you at this mountain or whatever, but they're not really very memorable. And I've always thought it's because they don't seem like they're sort of tectonically informed. They seem like they're just height maps generated by that have been put through some noise, basically, or have had noise applied to them even. And the ice planets are slightly different to this. The ice planets, I feel like the ones that are close to large gas giants, they do look like they've had a sort of wider process applied to them, simulating sort of gravity contracting and working on the ice. And it does look like there might be something like tectonic movement informing the layout of the terrain, but I'm not sure whether that's the case. It could just be could be the way that those planets are generated. It could just be the algorithm.
It's very good. What we have now, it's very good, but you definitely can tell that it's that thing of it being generated mathematically. You also get the thing as you sort of fly down in glide mode, there's that kind of thing of you're sort of zooming in and seeing more and more detail. But each level of detail shows the same sort of shapes as the previous layer. Do you know what I mean?
It's fractal.
Yeah.
The more you zoom in, you see the same patterns.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And what I've always felt, just to finish up, what I've always felt I would like to see from a really great planetary generation system is using tectonics as the first principles, because things like rain shadows and mountain ranges and plains, they don't form randomly. Planets aren't formed in the real world because they've had their height maps that have had noise applied to them. They're mountains are pushed up where plates push together, and plains form in rain shadows, and forests form in river basins, and all that sort of thing. It all comes down to tectonic plates, because the movement of tectonic plates informs where the mountains are, and that informs where the forests and the savannas and the deserts and all the rest of it, and where the patterns work. And I feel like that if you could get to an approach like that uses those principles, you'd end up with things that were recognizable landmarks, and you could say, oh, hey, that's the forest of X, or that's the plain of Y, or that's the mountain range of Z, and it would feel more personable because they would be generated according to those processes.
Yeah, they've always talked about tectonics ever since Horizons first launched. So I think the concept is in there, but I think what we'll see is Odyssey, representing that much more strongly, I hope.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Well, hopefully, when it comes to actual Earth-like planets, they'll have that technology locked down. I don't think they really need it for the moment.
Well, you say that, but as an example of an Earth-like worlds that aren't generated like that is No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky have They have settlements, they have trees, they have oceans. No Man's Sky planets have loads of the stuff that we would like to see from Elite Dangerous atmospheric planets, but they don't. It's one homogeneous biome. There's no noticeable climate difference at the poles than there is to the equator.
Yeah,
it's just a height map that's had a cave algorithm applied to it. There's no. So I do think that I don't think it's as simple as it'll all be all right when we get atmospherics. I do think you can do it well and you can do it badly, and you can apply tectonic principles and use those first principles as a terrain generator, and it's also possible to not do it, and it's superficially okay. But No Man's Sky has exactly the same thing that Alec just described, whereby you land somewhere and you're like, okay, well, I know that this is unique. I know that there is no other set of that there's no other scene that is exactly the same as this in this 18 quintillion system galaxy that they've made, but it still looks very, very familiar, like everywhere else. And that is purely because it's literally just height map with noise.
Yeah. That actually brings me on to a question that I'll ask later. I'm thinking about it. I'll ask it later. Meanwhile, next question. Would you say your approach for Odyssey is more accurate? The reply was yes. We've got the layers going from the top level down. We're trying to get the detail in all the way and represent it from a distance, so you can see the detail from further out, which will make a difference. The system we made for Horizons was good for Horizons. Very proud of what the team did. Still enjoying seeing screenshots and stuff on Twitter, but she's looking forward to seeing what we make of Odyssey. I wanted a system that was robust enough to handle things without having to do another remake of any of the tech. And that's why it's changed and we have all the detail. So basically, it's a further refinement, not a rewrite.
Hurrah! I mean, that's very encouraging. That comment, that final comment about a system robust enough to not have a remake. I sort of read that as, with this new iteration of the planetary tech, they're basically having to do a wipe of all the surfaces. So all your sort of favorite canyons aren't going to be there anymore on the mountains. It's a bit of a pain for us. I'm sure it's a pain for Frontier as well. There are manually placed assets, things like the gantries on the engineer bases, that they will have to do manual work, I'm sure, to relay those out. And I'm sure they'd rather not have to do it yet again next time. So this does sound like they're forward thinking here and trying to put in a system that they won't have to change again. Fingers crossed.
Harking back to last week, do you think they should combine that exercise with what we said last week about removing outposts and bases on inappropriate worlds?
How do you mean? You mean there's outposts some places where you don't think there should be?
Yeah, high G world.
Oh, I see. Don't know.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. Well, first of all, Ben, you had a point to say.
I'm just wondering, they're building these things and future-proofing it, but I wonder. We're being optimistic here, probably, but do we think they have ideas of what future-proofing things they're going to need? For example, one of the things we've often harked about, for example, is lava worlds, and then we're also going to have more atmospheric planets as well. Do we think that this new, or do we hope that this new planet tech can cope with lava, atmospheres, maybe even everything up to gas giants?
Okay, Sovereign, do you have an answer for that?
Yes, and I think, and my answer is, this is going to sound quite negative, but my answer is, I think you're getting your hopes up. It sounds really good when developers say, yeah, we've completely overhauled it and we're future-proofing it and we've made it so that we won't have to do it again. And because players think, oh, great, that means they've got really long-term plans for the game. That means it's not going to go into maintenance mode. That it means that they're planning it for the long haul. It sounds great. It sounds so much better than we patched a load of systems together that roughly work and don't throw too many bugs, and now we're going to ship it. but it's also something that we've heard before, and David Braben and the devs were at pains to stress when the game was being kickstarted and developed that, I remember David saying that they built the game to run on not just 4K but also 8K and 16K monitors. And I vaguely remember comments like we've built. Actually, no, I don't vaguely remember. I definitely remember comments like we've designed the ships, the interior ship layout with
space legs in mind. Yeah,
space legs in mind, and we've designed the game from the ground up with these systems in mind. And then that tune 6 years later, the tune is very much, it's now very much, have you any idea how complex this game is? Do you have any idea how difficult it would be to do XYZ? So I feel like I don't necessarily think that anybody's being dishonest, but I feel like saying, yes, we're future proofing it so that we don't have to rebuild the system in the future is probably easier to say than necessarily sort of take it as gospel. Lots of things were ostensibly designed with the future in mind for Elite, and haven't, and things haven't worked out in precisely that way. So it wouldn't surprise me if, for an example of this is Horizons, in which the SRV just won't work with multi-crew. That was an example of something that clearly wasn't built with posterity in mind. So yeah, and I guess let's not get our hopes up. Like, what we're getting is Odyssey. We haven't been told about lava planets. We haven't been told about forested planets or cities or traversable ones. Anyway, like we've not been. I would say that what we're getting is what we've seen in the Odyssey teasers and no more.
Okay, Shan.
I'd go on what Sue just said. Really, I mean, there's one of the things. There's a question I believe asked of the development team at a panel at LaveCon a few years ago about what sort of planets can we look forward to landing on, and at the time, lava worlds were categorically ruled out because of the graphical demands of all the lava and making it convincing. The other thing not mini rant is that I really get annoyed at when people say, "Oh, we're future proofing it," because there's no such thing as future proofing. For me, future proofing means I don't have to buy it again for a year, but then after that, I'll probably have to change it. So we're future proofing it. It's just marketing speak. It doesn't actually mean anything.
Okay, Alec.
I think I was going to comment on what Sue was saying, but I think he's sort of come round to, just that I'm sure they sort of mean it. I'm sure they've written this code with some thought towards, the planets next on the list that they want to open up, and they've probably thought ahead and, oh, we'll need it to cope with this sort of thing, and they've written the code in a way that hopefully will. But of course, I dare say they tried to do that with Horizons, and of course, game tech moves on, and in 6 years' time, they'll probably, maybe they will be looking back thinking, oh, we're going to have to rewrite it again because we're just in a new place now. But I suspect they've tried to write it with some future proofing in mind.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. As anyone who's tried to write future-proof
Yeah,
code.
yeah. But, I guess optimistically, I'd like to think it might stand for one more generation of planets. So whatever it is they choose to open up next, maybe it'll be good enough to support riverbeds or something, or lakes. Who knows?
It would have been a great question, actually. What it would have been an interesting leading question of what else could your system
Yes.
support? Could it support
Yes.
waterfalls? Could it support rivers? Could it support forest? It would be fascinating to hear Dr. K's response to that, actually.
Yeah, because there was an interview with David Braben about how far could the procedural generation tech go, and he said all the way down to a blade of grass, if I remember rightly. But obviously, that's what it could potentially be. Whether or not we're technically there is another matter.
Was that when they were selling pre-orders for the game, by any chance?
I think it was actually in one of our interviews.
What, with David Braben? Did we interview David Braben?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Nice.
I think we've interviewed him twice.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Not since I've been on the show. actually.
Yeah, funny that, Jan. Shan has a tendency to make devs run away.
I mean, he has a tendency to make everyone run away.
Oh, that's really mean.
Ooh.
Really cruel, Sue. Right, you're singing my part of the song for next week on your own. How about that?
I can't sing two parts of a barbershop quartet.
We have
Push Shan.
sampling technology.
I'll just
Sing Jeff.
procedurally generate Shan.
No, you just think about it. I mean, you've got all these loopers that are going around able to do entire symphonies just using their own voice. There you go. You've got
That's
to
true,
do a
yeah.
barbershop quartet all by yourself now.
Jesus Christ. Come on, do a radio show, they said. Just come and help with a podcast, they said. Now I'm an entire barbershop quartet on my own.
Oh, you love it, really. Anyway, what type of planet is this new tech going to be applied to? Well, every planet you can land on before, and the new ones opening up, will be using this approach. Old surfaces can't be representative of this new approach, and you're going to get a much larger variety using this new tech. So, um, that's obviously for people who upgrade to Odyssey. As we've noted before, if you're still on Horizons, you're not going to get the new tech.
I thought they said you'll be able to get some of the new tech, not all of it.
Oh, hang on a sec. Let's see. Where did that? Oh, someone's gone and scored it all out, so I can't read it now.
What was it they said today, actually, on the Super Cruise News? No, was that only about the certification? I heard a comment somewhere that if you didn't have Odyssey, then planet surfaces would look the way they used to.
Yeah,
Am I
that's the
imagining
impression
that,
that I
or?
got. No, that's the
Oh, actually,
impression
no.
that I got.
No, actually, I tell a lie. That's what the console players will see until Odyssey launches for them later in the year.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
PT Master Race will see it.
Because there was an issue that came up. Somebody sort of asked me and sort of said, so if we, for example, if we came up with a new race, a buckyball race, and sort of round about
Mhm.
July, say, that was, or whenever, that was on a planet surface, then console players wouldn't be able to join in because the surface wouldn't look the same to them, which is probably true.
Yeah.
Looking
Actually,
down the
that's
list.
a couple of
Sorry.
questions down for that answer.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. You're quite right.
So the question that we've already answered here, and this is: will console users see the changes at the same time as PC users? Nope. Console players who purchase the expansion will experience the planetary tech changes when it's released for their platform. So, no. No. So I guess that's buckyball races kind of split until everyone gets the same level.
Maybe
Indeed.
looking through the list of questions, one thing that we maybe need to consider for each one is, I think it was at the last physical LaveCon, someone asked about when they unveiled their new planetary tech. You know, those amazing screenshots of white planets.
Mhm.
And they said, "Oh, look at what we can do, and you won't need to change your graphics card to get it. You know, the hardware requirements will be the same." Have they said anything about graphics requirements for Odyssey? Have they increased, or are they assuming
They
you
are
won't
the
need
same.
your graphics card?
They
Isn't
are
there
the
a
same.
comment in here about lighting?
Yeah,
that
there is,
refers to
but
that?
there is a comment about this, and but there is a couple of things that I need to just highlight. First of all, some of those stunning images that we got shown at LaveCon a couple of years ago, those images were not renders. They were. This is what we were aiming for. They weren't actual renders of what they were hoping for. Well,
Yeah.
of what they'd managed to produce. They were artistic renders about, oh, this is the kind of thing we're shooting for, and I hope we get there. So, what we saw in LaveCon a couple of years ago, I don't think can apply. Let's see where else have we got? Are non-landable planets seeing these changes too? And it says no. The planetary tech is only focusing on planets you can land on, so you can see the detail up close. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, why waste processing power where on something that your players won't be able to access?
Indeed, and my only concern on that, I suppose, is that there isn't some jarring disconnect between what the new planets look like from space and what the old ones look like from space. You know, they need to look like they're all both in the same game.
Yeah, we don't really want to see a return to the beige plague on non-landable planets, really, do we?
No, I mean that's yeah. I think they've learnt their lesson on that one. After the amount of work that they put in beyond just to get that one sorted. Um, Next question: does it make you sad that players might not see the perfect alignment of planets and stars before moving on, missing out on some stunning views? Um, well, there's a range of feeling on that. There's the can we test every single possible combination of the galaxy? Obviously not. And what does the lighting here look like in 2 years' time? Well, we don't get to see that. We do get to see the screenshots on Reddit and Twitter, and they spend a lot of time um, looking and enjoying the sites that people discover. So I think it's a case of in this one, yeah, some of the views that you're used to having are going, but there should be some better ones coming.
Yeah, it struck me as an odd question, really. Actually, I mean, we're never going to see every perfect alignment of every planet. So what?
I don't really
Also,
understand the question.
No, I
Yeah, I
think.
mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
It seems a bit weird. It seems like I don't know whether they're asking. I've got no idea what they're asking really.
Yeah,
Do they mean that somehow it's Dr. K. Ross's responsibility that every player see every vista on every planet?
yeah, it's an odd question.
it's a bit of a train spotter answer, though, isn't it? A question, really, isn't it? Because I can just see forum people getting their salt shaker out and going, "Oh, the view from 54.68.HIP isn't correct based on the stellar alignment, etc." So, yeah.
You know, maybe somebody's done their maths and they've worked out that in 3.5 years' time there's going to be some amazing view, and they've suddenly been robbed of that. Well,
Yeah.
tough.
oh, you mean rhubarb and custard won't do the same thing as they used to?
Yeah, maybe.
Right. How comparable are the changes you're making to Odyssey to those of Horizons? It's the same but different. We've talked a lot about planets, but in the second half of what my team does is lighting, which is another thing that's changed a lot for Odyssey. Horizons was a fantastic and heavy undertaking to introduce full scale planets, um, which people don't tend to do because planets are hard. When it comes to Odyssey, we've got a framework there of how to make a planet and a surface, but the process in which the shape of the surface is decided, how the resources are streamed in and out and combined, is a large undertaking. It hasn't been a weekend or two of work. So that says to me that um, it's been a lot more complicated than they were expecting.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know about expecting. I think they will have known it was a big deal.
Yeah, it's been a massive chunk of work.
Yeah.
They've worked on it. It includes both Stellar Forge and rendering, and I think it's yeah, they hard job. Hopefully, well done.
Yeah, did you want to touch on something about views and collisions?
I actually you actually segued into it earlier with the rhubarb and
Oh,
custard.
oh,
Um,
sorry.
so yeah, I do wonder though, will the regeneration of Stellar Forge, will it fix in inverted commas planets colliding into each other? I kind of hope so. I kind of hope not.
Kind of. I'm sure it will introduce new anomalies that will,
I'm
you know,
yeah,
that we'll all
I'm
flock
with
to.
you
I'm sure
there.
we'll get new monoliths. We'll get square planets. We'll get planets that are inside out. We'll get
Ball
hairy ball
planets.
planets. God knows what. And we'll all flock to them and see them and photograph them, and then they'll slowly
Please
fix
don't
them. And
nerf Mutant Hollow Frontier.
Oh yeah, please keep,
yeah,
yeah, agreed. Yeah. Oh, I'll be so upset if Meter and Hollow
I,
gets
I,
hurt.
I feel generally that they're changing everything below a certain level. So they're changing, things at the surface level will
Yeah.
change, but the arrangement and speed and mass and diameter and movement of the planets themselves, I think, is unchanged.
I do wonder what's this going to mean for the view.
I don't think the gravity of a planet will change.
No,
No, but the system known as the view, though.
Is that the one that's very high gravity, or is that the one that is within
It's about 3 gravity.
Is it the one that's within the exclusion zone of a
no,
neutron star?
that's the world of death.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say, so if something is remarkable just simply because it's got high gravity, it will probably still be remarkable once Odyssey drops. I'd have thought.
But that's not the view. The view is. I'd have to look up the actual system name. It's just basically it's an absolutely glorious view, isn't it?
Oh, cool.
I don't know if is there anything actually. Alex, do you know if there's anything special about the place other than the fact it's damn pretty?
I don't know that I've been to it. I'm trying to remember what it's a view of. Is it planetary alignments and things? In which case, I
Yeah.
guess that won't really change. I mean, the planets that you see might change
Um,
color, I suppose, but
It's HR6164 after a quick Google. Planet. Blah, 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 blah.
oh yes,
It's
somebody's just
yeah,
reminded me one of the speed bowls was at the view. So yeah, I imagine
yeah. That's the last time I visited it. Was
I did
for
I
for
did see
people.
Primetime Casual comment actually. So for those that took part in, I think it was Speed Bowl 4, it sort of finished
Yeah,
by flying through this nice crack in the rim of a crater.
and I'd
So
imagine that crack's gonna go.
yes, I imagine that will be gone. In fact, the crater might be gone, I suppose.
Probably the whole planet will have miraculously reformed around us.
Fascinating.
I wonder what's going to happen actually if you landed on planets when you change from
This was
Odyssey, from
this was
Horizons to
discussed
Odyssey.
quite a lot on the forum. I think the general suggestion is that we'll probably all get kicked to orbit.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Oh, excuse me.
Well, we're certainly deep diving on these ones. What the players can look forward to regards lighting in Odyssey. Well, they said they've made quite a lot of changes on the rendering site. And to list a few examples, they now have some per pixel lit particles. They have some more shadowed spotlights working together, and also finally have physical based materials that have all the information of how rough they are and how should they respond to light. If you feed these through realistic lighting values, they work out how things look. And that's part of the reason why the new planets are looking very nice, because it's a combination of the lighting from the atmosphere, the star, and any lights around you. It does seem that you're still coming from one um, light source, such as one star. They've said they're not handling um light coming from binary or tertiary star systems yet.
Yeah, it's a shame.
But
It,
con-
it's
go
something
on.
that only started to bug me after I became aware of it. But since I became aware of it, it's a bit of an irritant that you only get light from one source. But I completely understand why they do it. It interests me that it's performance intensive to have more than one light source.
Are we assuming then there won't be any ray tracing and RTX with
Yep.
these?
Yeah, I
Yes,
think so.
because
They would have
they
mentioned
said that it'll run on present graphics cards. So, you
It'll
know,
still run on present graphics cards. It just adds extra shininess.
I mean,
well,
I think that I did Google. I don't know if anyone here knows anything about per pixel lit particles. I did Google per pixel lighting, and it seemed to sort of be the norm, or almost. The alternative is vertex lighting. So per pixel is like the lighting sort of affects every spot, if you like, and vertex lighting is lighting sort of deals with edges. So I'm not sure per pixel lit particles is incredibly new, unless I've missed something.
Interesting.
But physically based materials that have information about how rough they are, that's actually quite exciting because, currently every surface, whether it's the edge of a rock or the top of a mountain, is made of the same sort of game stuff.
Hmm.
So it all lights and reflects the same. But suddenly the idea that we're going to have, rough surfaces and shiny surfaces, and that's really quite exciting, actually.
Yeah, that is interesting.
The next question was quite interesting as well. Are some of the planet types getting some more love, so to speak? There are certain planet classes that Horizons deals with, which was rocky, metal rich, high metal content, rocky, ice, and icy. Um, it does appear that the rocky, icy world is going to have a much more distinct look um, than the standard rocky planet. So, kind of a combination of both the ice planet and the rocky planet.
Yeah, yeah. I get the strong sense reading through all this that Horizons basically picks from quite a small it's like which one of these five things is it, and then they apply some random numbers and generate
Mm,
a planet of type 5, whereas what they're now doing is having loads of variables to do with mass and heat and tectonic shifts and stuff feeding into a whole new way of drawing the surface to give much more variety. That's kind of what I get from all this.
yeah. Oh, the next one's actually kind of makes sense to me from a mathematical point of view, as will large worlds feature tall mountains or geological features? Now, this is an interesting question. The reason why these features are shallower on large planets is, well, there is a reason. The increased gravitational strains, you can't maintain a tall natural feature with the strength of the material it's made out of, so you end up with shallower features. Um, and that's how the maths drops out for it. So there's a good rid of planets, but the tiny ones are going to be the ones where you get the extreme terrain because of the lower gravity. The terrain can exist, and of course that didn't occur to me until I saw the answer to this question and suddenly realized, yeah, you won't see massive mountain ranges on a 3G planet because those mountains have got to be formed against 3G, which
Mm.
is a lot more obviously difficult.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's really interesting.
It's one of those things that it's a little light bulb goes on the back of your head and goes, "Oh, of course it'll work out that way. Why did that not occur to me before?" Um, does planetary tech allow for new land features such as caves in the future? Well, this one's a no, I'm afraid. Caves aren't currently part of the plan for Odyssey. The focus is instead on planet-wide improvement. I think we kind of expected that one.
Yeah,
It's
we
already
know
we already
that.
knew that.
We know that. It's a
Yeah.
shame, but we sort of know that. Maybe next time.
But this was quite interesting. Will atmospheric worlds feature weather effects such as wind and dust? And so, yes, there'll be some visible effects visible on the surface.
Hmm. It was interesting in the stream, wasn't it? I know, I guess Suve didn't see it, but they're really paraphrasing the answer here. But there was there was a lot of sort of yes, and then sort of realizing maybe she was about to say too much and sort of backtracking and saying, well, no, and then there'll be some visible effect. My hunch, I don't know what others think, my hunch is that she was about to say something to the effect of there's no wind that will affect the flight model, but
Hmm.
there will be visible effects. And
Yeah.
then she suddenly thought, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to announce that, and tried to sort of quickly move past it. But that's my hunch, is that she was going to say something to the effect of not really, not wind in the sense of your ship was going to get blown around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes
On
sense.
the live stream today, didn't they announce there was no hurricanes or big wind effect
Yeah, yeah,
on it?
I think so.
Yeah. So, how will the new planetary tech affect volcanism and the integration of volcanic features into the terrain? We will be using the scatter system to ensure that volcanic regions are placed in the correct areas of volcanic worlds. So,
I have a question here that I'm curious what people think. There's been a
mhm.
couple of points in this where it's talked about different sorts of features being in different parts of the planet, rather than there being this sort of unique, uniform, random algorithm that does the same thing all over the planet. Does anyone think materials might go hand in hand with that? Because at the moment, I think there's a lot of FUD out there, and people think materials are found in the middle of craters or on the edge of ravines. I think that's nonsense. I think they're randomly scattered, frankly. And
Yeah,
I
I think they're
wonder,
randomly scattered.
Wouldn't it be nice if suddenly, the iron deposits were associated with certain features and the sulfur was associated with certain features? I'd love that.
That'd be really cool. My feeling is that the outcrops on planets are distributed in the same way that the scattered rocks are,
Yeah.
in the
Mhm.
same way
Yeah.
that Kay Ross describes.
Shan.
Going on the material formation
Mhm.
and things like that, it's interesting because when I've been gathering materials on planets, it almost as if like if you reset the seed by relogging,
Hmm.
logging back in again, you can get a different mix of materials. It's almost like you reset the spawns by relogging or going out of range or something and coming back. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see because, like yourself, I always thought different materials spawned in the middle of the craters because there was a spreadsheet produced many years ago where people noted down what materials spawned where. But as I went on, it did seem to be it was very much more of a randomized sort of subset, regardless of where you are, rather than anything specifically geographical.
Yeah. Next question. How does the Stella Forge place planetary bases and installations? Now, this is something that I've always wanted to know. There are ways that we place settlements on planet surfaces. The outposts and ports use a simple radio flattening of an area, so we know a port or outpost is going to be there, or a little bit of deviation if there's a crater port. For things like the Guardian sites, they use stamps. They've authored a resource of what terrain should look like underneath at this point, and we can tailor where it goes and decide how it blends in. With Odyssey, we've expanded this a bit so that across the stamp there can be variations of height is calibrated to, which leads to more interesting levels. Um, the one thing that I really hope that they've managed to do is work out a way to put racetracks.
Yeah. Do you know my takeaway from this? And I don't get it from this wording, so maybe what she said was slightly different on stream. But this thing of different levels, what I took it slightly to mean is that currently, if you think of the classic sort of planetary base, not the big round ones, but the other ones,
Mm,
there's all sorts of variations of how many outbuildings and the huge amount of variation. But the variation is all two-dimensional, if you know what I mean. If you look straight down on it, the plan view is where the variation is, but they're all on the same level.
yeah.
And what I'm sort of wondering is whether this is going to allow that sort of variation to cope, with bases that are slightly up a hill, so there'll be three different levels to them, or that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, because the engineered bases are like that. There are
Yeah, I mean,
engineered bases where you've
yeah,
got pads
and
at
that
different heights.
wouldn't it be great if all the thousands of procedurally generated bases are equally, you know,
Yeah, that'd be
shaped?
really cool.
The
Yeah.
question is regarding things like that, is first of all, if you have a multi-level base, either it's on different stories or whatever,
Hmm.
and you go inside, will that mirror the external layout of the base?
Good question.
Uh, and then secondly, when I read through that, I thought, oh great, now it will be even harder to find a place to land at Guardian Ruins.
Yes. Don't you think
Ah,
this is slightly off topic, but don't you think slightly that the places we can go inside, so like inside the Coriolis, there's the social hub is like that one building
yeah.
with, yeah. I sort of feel that equally with these planetary bases, anything we won't just be able to go inside and randomly wander the corridors, and I think we'll be limited to the one room that's designated the social area.
Yeah.
Are the gents then going to be somewhere close by other than having
I
to
think
go
so.
around 5 corners and 2 flights of stairs and into the
Yeah,
basement like
yeah,
they
I think
usually
so.
are?
Yeah. I mean, they can simply say for a low reason, oh, all the pilots have to go this way because we don't want any of their bugs being transferred across the rest of the station
Yeah, I
slash
think there'll be
outpost.
lots of off limits areas.
Hmm.
There's a reasonable law justification for making the experience of being a pilots federation member relatively segregated.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think they should have executive lounges based on your Pilots Federation.
An
I mean,
elite
that's
lounge.
actually more plausible, to be honest.
So if you're elite, you sort of get into the first class lounge, you know, and you've got as much donuts as you can eat and whatever. And if you're just like harmless, you're basically only allowed in the corner behind the plant.
The elite area has the suction toilets, and the plebs area has the gravity fed ones that don't work
Yeah.
quite well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Next question. Will atmospheric planets have visible poles with different biomes? After internal debate, we've ended up using the term gemones?
Geomes.
Geomes. Sounds like gnomes, doesn't it? There are
Yeah.
different. There are different geomes across the planet. There are polar caps where they should be, plains, mountain forming regions, and all the other nice stuff. So that sounds to me like they've actually. It's not like the same map will be applied across the entire planet.
Mm.
There'll be a strip where it will be polar caps, and the strip which will be. I found that's
So
very
will they?
positive about the future.
Yeah. So will they be? You have planets that always have a permanent dark side,
Hmm.
for example, and that side will be significantly colder
Yeah.
than the light side. So will they then have the granularity to be able to say, well, that's always in the dark side, so therefore that side is icy in a like a polar region, and this side is always facing the sun, so therefore it's warmer. I'm just wondering, will they go to that level of detail? Do you think?
I don't know
To be able to answer
yet.
that, actually, Shan.
Ben?
So I believe the physics is still out on this, but one of the things they've noticed in, I want to say it's Mercury or something like, one of the things they've noticed is basically that because of the temperature differentials between the planets, there is
Mhm.
actually a shitload of wind trying to normalize the planet's temperature.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the idea is that the dark side of the planet might not actually be as cold as you might think it is, and the hot side of the planet might not be as hot. And actually living on that boundary of in the twilight, shall we say, might not be the best idea.
Interesting.
But this is all theory, and basically nobody actually knows.
Yeah, until
Um,
we send probes to Mercury to find out, and that they survive, then I don't think we'll ever know, will we?
Have we sent ships past?
I don't think we've actually had something land on Mercury yet.
we've had a
Not
land
land,
on
but
Mercury.
I'm sure we sent a probe somewhere with a ship with a permanent a planet or a moon with a permanent dark side to know the answer to that question.
Well,
Was
yeah,
it
it's the moon.
Uranus?
Isn't
So
the
you're
moon always the dark side? Or is that there's always a side away from us?
I think there's always a side away from us.
Yeah. Sorry, my brain's not engaging. Of course, though, it'll get hit by sunlight at some point. Sorry, I'm just being thick.
Oh, we had a comment from Twitch that says a tidally locked planet in quote should have significant strange features on the sunward side, is what someone's mentioned. Whether it's correct or not, I'm not sure, but it sounds plausible.
Yeah. Right. Next question: will aurora be visible in atmospheric planets? No. Is planets with the atmosphere will look different, but there are no plans to add a visible aurora to them at the moment. But yeah, I'm just thinking of the amount of work that it would be for very little payoff. You just stand there, look at it, and go, "Oh, that's pretty." First time, and then you'd get bored of it after a while, I think.
I don't know. I think it's a shame they're not putting it in because that would be wonderful to look at, I think.
Hmm. And a final personal question: do you feel more fear about space the more you learn about it? And the answer is, what they found at university is that things start becoming larger and larger. And when you start using scales you can't make sense, that don't make sense to humans anymore, um, in particular particle physics, for example, once one can start disassociating the universe in your mind in these models. So somehow it comes that far removed from themselves and our tactical interaction with it. So it's less scary, but more indescribable.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean,
I like
that's
that.
yeah, that's one of the things that gets me. Everyone goes, I'm scared of flying because I'm scared of heights. After I get above 1,000 feet and I'm looking down on the ground, I'm not scared of heights because basically that feels so far away and disconnected from me.
Hmm.
I
It
guess it.
doesn't.
Yeah, I guess for how real it feels to you personally, because I completely understand the fear of heights, and I completely understand, I don't know, a fear of bees or anything like that on the planet because it's potentially near you. It's like saying, "Are you scared of black holes?" Well, no, because I'm not ever going to get anywhere near a black hole for it to worry me.
When
The
I'm 1,000
concept.
feet up, I'm not scared of bees at all. Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, overall, what did everybody think to this um, to this live stream? I mean, I thought it's something that I think they've been missing for a while, and it kind of reassures you because it's that complicated. They've done a lot of work. I mean,
I
Yeah,
thought it was. Sorry,
go on. You go.
I thought it is spectacular, and what I'm looking forward to is actually seeing this rendered in game and then relating it to what they were actually talking about in this Q&A. Because at the moment, we've kind of got all these questions and this image of what it could be like in Odyssey. And I think when you can see what it's like in Odyssey and you start to match that with that, that's when the real appreciation of what they've been able to do, I think, comes.
Ben,
I think it's great that we had it, and we did get some nice little nuggets, but I don't actually think. I think it suffered from a couple of things, frankly. One, and I love Arf, but Arf was fangirling over Kay. And he maybe needed to do that a little bit less, and maybe just shut up and let Kay talk. Um, and I'm saying that with love and things like that, but
yeah, because you were fangirling over everything that she was saying as well.
yeah, but I wasn't interrupting her.
It is a recognised community manager thing. I remember when in the early years, Ed Lewis used to host streams, and he used to just warble for fucking minutes on end, just thanking everyone, thanking his interviewee, thanking the community, just banging on and on and on. And I sort of felt like sort of shaking the TV and being like, "Shut up, man! Just introduce them and let them talk." Like
This is
It
coming from
feels
the show, which takes an hour to get to our main topic.
yeah, exactly. It's a
There
it's a
you go.
CM nervous. It's a CM nervousness thing, I think.
it did feel a bit like the end of the Lord of the Rings, didn't it?
Yeah, I like that reference.
Alec,
Yeah, it was great actually. I sort of got more out of it almost, like I said, from rereading the transcript afterwards. It was a shame there weren't any visuals, but I suspect that's just because of working at home and COVID and just not having the access to resources. If anyone remembers, Dr. Ross's first presentation many years ago, there were lots of nice little illustrative graphics about cubes and smaller cubes, and
Yeah,
um, so. But it was fascinating. It was
Hairy
still,
balls.
yeah, she could have illustrated some of that, but it was absolutely fascinating, and I found it very encouraging. It's interesting that it feels like there's two sides to Elite. As a game and the game engine, that there's some stuff that's bolted on. That's a lot of stuff feels bolted on's a bit unfair. There's a lot of stuff that feels very half done. Bookmarks or something like that is
Mhm.
like almost it's a very minimal sort of this'll do sort of thing. But I almost feel like Kay Ross and her team of, I don't know if they're just allowed to get on with it, but go to go to sort of almost more depths than they need to. There's extraordinary stuff in here, which I'm so glad that Frontier is still doing. Because I sort of feel
yeah,
like you almost they could almost have got away with not going into this level of detail, and it's
completely. Totally agree with that.
And it's brilliant that they have.
I mean, one of the reasons for that I'm glad that they've gone into this level of detail is so that I think most of us know how much work has been done, because
Yes.
there's
But I
an
don't just
awful
mean
lot of,
detail in the talk. I mean detail in the work they've done.
yeah,
If you see what I mean.
because
Yeah.
there's an awful lot of talk about especially when you compare it to other systems which have been generated, other games which generate star systems. Um,
Yeah. I'm
you know,
glad they recognise that the realism is still important and is at the heart of Elite Dangerous.
Yeah,
No matter
absolutely.
what, no matter what game loops they bolt on top of it, the realism of the galaxy is. They clearly recognise that realism is still very important to the heart of the game.
yeah. Well, does anybody else have any final comments to say on this before we move on to the social, uh, the community corner?
Yeah, I wanted to say this did actually increase my enthusiasm and expectation for Odyssey. I think it's made me look forward to it more than I was previously. So if that was part of the aim of the talk, as far as I'm concerned, it worked.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we'll move on to things that the community have been up to for the last week. Well, we've only got two things to really discuss this time. One of which will be close to close to one of our crew members. And the Sagittarius Eye has recently released a new podcast, which came out, I think, last week.
Yes. Issue number 33 is now out and available and listenable and audible on your favorite thing that you listen to podcasts via. And it's very good, and you should listen to it. And it's been carefully crafted by brilliant, intelligent writers and sonorous, melodious voice actors. And it will make an excellent addition to the interior of your ears.
And Pete Witherspoon.
Oh, that's cruel. People, by saying that, you've implied that he's not as melodious as everybody else.
Yeah, that's actually quite cruel, Ben.
Yeah.
That's very cruel. So I guess the question is, though, who would you call more melodious? Is Gideon Ant's voice or Pete Witherspoon?
Who would win in a fight? That's the real question.
Yeah, death match.
Who would win in a
Voice-over death
Top
match.
quartet fight.
who would win in a melodious off?
Yeah. And a quartet off.
Between
Ant
Yamet.
has to get it, actually. Ant has to get it. Sorry, Pete.
He's not particularly physically large, though, is he? But then again, neither is Pete Witherspoon.
It's not rest.
I'm sorry, I was still on the wrestling thing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, if you've got that image in your
whole
mind, I'm worried.
voice. Yeah, Pete's
I've just got
also got a great voice, but he's not Ant.
So I've just got a picture of Pete Witherspoon, like the Mexican wrestler guy from Simpsons.
No, because I got full Greek wrestling at the moment, and that's not very pleasant.
I think this is worth a go, though. Like, I think we should think about maybe organising an Elite Dangerous content creators wrestling tournament
At LaveCon.
Yeah, I think it'd be quite good. Get
Yeah,
everybody
Pete,
to everybody to
wrestling
wear.
match, don't you?
Yeah, maybe the format could be cage fighting. Maybe like put them all in little leotards that map that match their the colors of their little avatars. Get them all to fight. Maybe get someone to like squeeze some cooking oil in there to get it slippery, just to spice it up a bit. Televise it perhaps.
Now, so
I'll run a book. We can take bets. I think it'd be great.
This started as an ASMR off, and now it is turned into full on jelly. We've already had requests for jelly wrestling.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, oiled up cage fighting is one idea. Jelly wrestling is another idea. It's a malleable concept.
To Obsidian Ant and to Pete Witherspoon, I can only apologise. My co-hosts seem to have been taken over by some kind of weird eroticism. That's all I can say.
The first heat will be Pete Witherspoon and Yamex in a cage covered in sunflower oil. So if you're interested, then just send me a PM and I'll sell you a ticket.
Roll on LaveCon 2021.
That's put images into my head that I've got really,
So you've got
really
down to earth
difficult
astronomy
with.
versus Obsidian Ant. The
Down to earth astronomy. Oh my god, he's gonna have there are gonna be some odds on that guy. Like he's gonna need a handicap because isn't he like 7 foot tall?
No, aren't you thinking of Mobius?
Oh, Mobius is about 7 foot tall. Yeah.
Yeah, Liam's about 7 foot. I can't believe we're even discussing this.
Down to earth astronomy, and I'm just his beard would
Which
be quite hard to get
community
oil
member
out
would
of.
win in a greased up wrestling match? Okay.
That's the question for this week, folks.
Yeah.
Okay,
would
let's
win in a
put that
fight?
as a question. Meanwhile, the Turning the Wheel initiative is now in war for the ownership of Sol, testing the Sol test site. So they'll be looking to expanding soon after that war. How long have they got until they've achieved all their goals? Because they must be close by now.
There's a few weeks on there still. It has to go into a election cycle and a pending election cycle, and
Yeah.
so I think there's a few more weeks before interesting things do or don't happen.
And of course, LFT 509 is the big one. So this is in inverted commas only Sol.
True. Right. Unfortunately, I think we'll leave the community corner there before anybody else gets some mud wrestling ideas. I'm scared to even ask that. Has anybody got any other business?
Well, we've still got the quartet store alert song contest.
Yeah, we really need to sort that out. We need to write that song and record it.
Yeah, so there. If anybody's got any suggestions to, well, no, it was The Lion Who Sleeps Tonight is the one, the
I think
favourite.
we need some lyrics for that. I'm quite tempted to work on that myself.
Yeah.
So
We've got two community questions, haven't we? We've got the song.
We've got so many community questions.
Who would win in the fight?
What odds
Yeah,
would you put on various combinations of community creators in an oily cage? How easy is it to wash sunflower oil out of a beard like Down to Earth Astronomy's? How shiny would Obsidian Ant's head be if you covered it in sunflower oil?
Oh boy. Can you tell that we're actually that desperate for more information for Elite Dangerous? Frontier, I'm blaming you for this. If you'd given us more information, this wouldn't be happening.
They gave us more information about planets this week than we've had in years, and we still end up talking about how oily the ant would be. So, not a lot of hope, is it?
Yet again, I feel I must apologise. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Right. Shoutouts. First shout out, our sister station Hutton Orbital Radio. It broadcasts on a Thursday at 8:30. You can tune at Twitch TV Hutton Orbital Truckers, or just for the audio at radio.forthemug.com. Now there's a crowd that would get into the wrestling, wouldn't they? They'd do it for free.
Yep.
Smelly, oily truckers,
Yeah, they'd be strong contenders.
Yeah, they're in the cage too. Fancy Young in a cage match with Psycho Cow or something, yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, that's these are we're gonna have to hold a lot of heats.
There'll be a lot of people in heat the way you lot are acting. For the discerning commander who likes a bit of CQC action, check out the CQC Discord at discord.me/EliteDangerousCQC. For those that like a literary discussion about sci-fi fantasy books, please subscribe to the Data Slate podcast created by our station commander, Alan Stroud. We'll also give shout-outs to the following Elite Dangerous podcasts. No doubt these people will... the rest of the crew will be evaluating whether or not they'll be better covered in baby oil or not at this rate. So Loose Screws, Elite Week, Flight Assist, Spanish speakers, there's the Elite Cast, we have the Canon podcast, the Fatherhood podcast, Squeaking Fuel, and of course the Guard Frequency, who do other space sims as well. Following on from this, we have the latest Galnet news as provided by Commander Witherspoon and Commander Beetlejude. I would like to thank everybody who's chipped in the Twitch chat and the other games. I'm scared to look up the chat now. I really am. But mud wrestlings. Kaizen is wanting to place a bet on himself.
I'd back Kaizen. He used to kill people for a living. I would bet on that guy.
Colin, a question though, Colin. In this contest, are we allowing Vaseline?
What?
That can be an event. That can be a specific event.
So now, not only are you wanting wrestling to happen, you want wrestling to happen based on the kind of ointment that you want to cover the wrestlers in.
Well, no, the heats would be different. The heats would be different. So heat 1 would be sunflower oil in a cage, for example. Heat 2 might
Vaseline.
be Vaseline. Yeah, heat 3 could potentially be could be Nutella. I don't know. You can get creative.
Yep.
Heat
Ben
4
is very quiet in this, isn't he?
Red hot chili sauce for the next one, perhaps. I don't know.
Oh god. And the
Round
final could be like that scene out of The
Round
Dark Knight when somebody just walks in and breaks a pool cue in half, chucks the two halves on the floor, and says, "Fight it out."
Stuart's is suggesting we have the final and beans. I was thinking maybe custard.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
get some non-Newtonian physics going on here, or
like
non-Newtonian fluids anyway.
Very nice.
Well,
instant custard with a powder, or instant custard from the carton.
Preferably post creation. I've just jotted some heats down. How does this look? Obsidian versus Down to Earth Astronomy. Wotherspoon versus Yamix. Hutton Truckers, all of them versus Kaizen.
my money'd still be on Kaizen.
I mean, the dude used to kill people, so I feel like he needs a handicap. So I feel like putting him against all of the Hutton Truckers.
That last heat just sounds like one mighty gangbang, doesn't it?
Oh, God.
Yeah, Stephen Usher, one with deep heat. Oh God, imagine.
Okay,
Around
right.
the hairy ball planet.
On that bombshell,
The show title: Deep Heat Around the Hairy Ball Planet.
surely isn't it Veet that has the massive amount of reviews about people using it?
Yeah, the Veet reviews on Amazon still funny.
Yeah, there won't be very many hairy balls after that heat.
Deep heat on hairy balls.
Apparently there's a new podcast called Algorab AM. I've not heard of this. I think Norman's putting it into the show notes even as we speak. But hello to them.
How physically powerful are they?
Content creator cage matches.
Right. Well, I'm calling it on this particular episode before it gets even more bizarre and silly. So that's it for another episode of Lave Radio. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, you can email info@laveradio.com. Hit us up at facebook.com/laveradio. Tweet us at Lave Radio. And you can join our Discord server by going to discord.io/laveradio. We also have a TeamSpeak server where commanders come to hang out and chat. You can find that at teamspeak.laveradio.com. It is shared with the hairy truckers, so be careful. Do get in touch if you have any questions or any requests on various ointments, or if there's anything else you'd like us to discuss in a future episode. Brackets with reason.
We
Please.
just have nice suggestions. It's your chat.
Lave Radio is recorded live on a Tuesday evening at 8:30 and streamed out at laveradio.com/live. I can't thank our panelists for this because I really can't. I commiserate about this.
I'm just so glad I came on for this intellectual discussion. It was
Why? Don't you want to see
evening well
Paige?
spent.
Don't you want to see Paige versus Colo then, Colin?
Absolutely.
So I'd like to thank Alec Turner for gracing us with his presence.
It's been a pleasure.
I'd just like to say I'm completely and utterly disgusted by my fellow panelists.
By your feathers.
Exactly. And this is how bad you're getting me now.
Feathers!
God, no. He's off to tar and feathers now, is he?
Feathers and oil could be one of the rounds.
Oh, God. So, no thanks to Ben, Suv, or Shan. But we do have to say special thanks to today's tech specialist, the Chris Smart 4. Good luck with this edit, mate.
If you're so disapproving, Colin, why are you laughing?
Yeah, thanks for making my job easy, guys. Yeah.
It's just that I've seen in the messages the amount of stuff that Norman's been saying. Well, I'm glad you're doing this edit and not me.
I might go into hiding after the show.
So until next time, Commanders, with shame, I say fly safe, and if you can't do that, fly dangerous.
Is your life like this?
Sounds like someone having an orange inserted in it. You need a safe word. Space can be loaded. I'm gonna see the galaxy.
Ah, damn it. No worries, guys. Hold the fort for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Forget the Uranus talk. This is the new outro.
According to scientists, Uranus is full of methane gas.
You've been dying for something to replace your Uranus.
I think you're right, though, Colin.
Pardon?
What have you done with Shan, and when can we have him back?
I don't know. I'm quite attached to this one, to be honest.
Yeah, that butt clenching really was awesome.
Galnet News Digest, 23rd of February 3307. We read the news so you don't have to.
In this week's news, Kane leads anti-Mahon protests.
A who's who of who's going.
Bring back beige.
Photo competition and bug hunting. Kane leads anti-Mahon protests. Councillor Nakato Kane has become a pain in the prime ministerial neck of Edmund Mann. Building on discontent over Mann's summary decision to postpone the election by 3 months, Kane has become the leader of a direct action protest group that spread rapidly through a number of alliance systems, using the delay to the election of a new Prime Minister as a focal issue to express wider discontent over a diverse range of grievances, such as unwarranted expansionism, higher taxes, a lack of coherent defence policy, and perhaps, most importantly, the Prime Minister's stated love of beige planets. Had the election not been delayed, there seems little doubt that Councillor Kane, riding the wave of discontent over the delayed election, would have won. Except, of course, that if the election hadn't been delayed, there probably wouldn't have been a protest movement. Kane has said that she'll accompany the Prime Minister to this week's Galactic Summit to ensure that the real interests of the Alliance are safeguarded. Mann, meanwhile, has insisted that the large-scale protests are the result of a vocal minority, and has repeated that the delay to the election is essential for the democratic best interests of the Alliance.
A who's who of who's going. With the Galactic Summit just 2 days away, we're still waiting for the final lineup of delegates. We know who's going from the Marlinists, Jenna Fairfax and Aaron White. We know who's going from the Empire, Princess Aisling, Senator Petraeus and Chancellor Blaine. We know who's going from the Federation, both President Hudson and Shadow President Winters. As we've just heard, Councillor Nakato Kane, his chief critic, will accompany Alliance Prime Minister Edmund Mahon to the summit. Not necessarily with his blessing. We have to assume that Lee Yong-ri, the boss of Sirius Corporation, will want to host the summit in person. But how about the other independents? Will Pranav Antal, whose offer to host the summit was turned down, be willing to swallow his pride and attend? How about oligarch Yuri Grom? We haven't heard much from Yuri Grom since he entered semi-retirement. This might be just the sort of event to prove he's still alive, and not a mummified corpse in a mausoleum after all. Thark the Mighty, Prince of the Pleiades and Emperor of the Col 70 sector, notes with displeasure that he has not been invited. He courteously suggests that if you want to make peace with your enemy, perhaps a good first step might be to invite them to sit round the negotiating table. Although he admits that sitting can be a problem if you have 6 legs and 2 arms in addition to your mandibles. A good second step might be a slap-up meal of occupied escape pods and Lavian brandy, although he understands that occupied escape pods were unaccountably left off the shopping list of rare delicacies for the summit. He awaits his invitation, which he points out, if not forthcoming, might make him displeased. And a displeased Thark the Mighty is, he is sure, not something the bloodbags of the galaxy would want to see. The Guardians haven't been invited either, but as they died off at least 1 million years ago, as a result of getting very good indeed at warfare, they're less concerned about it than the leader of the Thargoids. In the hugely unlikely event that something went wrong at the summit, we'd be left with Emperor Arissa, slave trader Torval and Prince Hadrian Duval for the Empire, Amrita Ross for the Marlinists, Vice President Mitchell and Shadow Vice President Rochester for the Federation. No one of significance at all for the Alliance, plus an assortment of minor independents from independent systems to run the galaxy. Oh, we nearly forgot. There's someone else who hasn't been invited to the summit. Theta 7. The well-connected leader of the NMLA terrorists, who harbours a grudge against the Duval family, and who isn't averse to blowing up federal stations too, appears to have been missed off the guest list. Still, he's likely to take it all in good spirits, isn't he?
Bring back beige. Ahead of the Galactic Summit, there's some good news from the scientists. The Federal, Alliance and Imperial Cartographic Institutes have long been locked in a struggle over accepted mapping and visualization techniques. It's recognised that your understanding and perception of the terrain of a planet is governed by the information you've been given about it. If you're told by your mapping system that it's a hostile terrain full of icy spikes, then that's what you'll see. If you're told it's a desert plain, then you'll perceive a desert plain. Hills, craters and brain trees notwithstanding. And now an accord has been reached to improve and standardise mapping to ensure that everyone in the galaxy will see planets as they really are. Ship sensors will be brought into line with this new mapping system, and the visual inputs from the hazard-sensitive cockpit screens will begin to show a true and accurate representation of the planet's surfaces outside. Some tweaks have been incorporated to meet the needs of the superpowers. The Empire didn't feel like its ice worlds were white enough. The Federation wanted its metallic worlds to look more metallic. And Edmund Mann, in the Alliance, has long wanted Alliance worlds to look more beige, like they used to. The new mapping system, which will be rolled out gradually, tentatively starting in May, will do its best to accommodate these preferences, including the Alliance's re-Beigenification. The superpowers are also planning to use this work to get their own back on the Buckyball Racing Club, which has organised numerous illegal events in the Imperial Alliance and Federal space over the years. Using the mapping improvement scheme as cover, they plan to completely demolish the ice ridges of Pomesh 2C, leaving the planet as smooth and featureless, in their words, as Arthur's cranium.
Photo competition and bug hunting. In other news this week, the Pilots Federation is holding a My Favourite Planet competition. They are inviting the commanders to send in their favourite screenshot of a planet in advance of the new Planetary Mapping and Visualisation System, or PLMVS, completely changing what all the planets look like. The Pilots Federation is also asking users of the PS4 flight control system to send them details if they're unable to land on planets, so that the problem can be investigated. Some estimates say that up to 1/3 of PS commanders are affected, meaning they are unable to enter the My Favourite Planet competition. Still, that gives the rest of us a better chance of winning, so it's not all bad.
And that's this week's Galnet News.
Galnet News. We read the news so you don't have to.
Yes!